What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Adventure Outpost. The Batman has released this weekend. Two absolutely stellar reviews, a great performance at the box office, and one hell of a movie, if I do say so myself. So in today's adventure, we are going to be going into the ins and outs of The Batman, what I loved about the movie and what I didn't love so much about it. The Batman is a movie that sees Batman in his second year of crime fighting as he comes up to his biggest challenge yet when he comes face to face with the villain, the Riddler. Along for the ride is Catwoman with her own nefarious schemes and a bunch of other cast of colorful characters there to light up the silver screen. It is one hell of a movie, and we're going to get into all my thoughts here next. Our first bad is the pretty much the one absolute staggering thing that this movie did that really actually aggravated me. All these other things are mostly nitpicks, but this one is the only thing that really actually got under my skin and made me groan audibly in the theater. And that is the inclusion of the Joker. It should come as no surprise to anybody these days. As long as there's been Batman movies, there's been Jokers around to fuck with them. We've got them all from Jack Nicholson to Mark Hamill in the cartoons, all the way to Heath Ledger, to Jared Leto, to Joaquin Phoenix. The list is almost as long as the Batman list itself. And if there's one thing that I do not need in my Batman movies right now, it is another fucking Joker. I'm sorry, but I just don't need him in it right now. I'd much rather see either a villain that I've never heard of before or see them tackle somebody else again. Like, this one was really cool to get to see the Riddler again. That was a guy we haven't seen since Jim Carrey did it in a much more cornier movie. So to get to see him in this setting was very awesome. I wish that they would have set up a villain for the next movie that would follow in those footsteps. A Mr. Freeze, I'd even take another Two-Face. Literally anybody else besides the Joker. It would have been one thing if it was Joaquin Phoenix's Joker, because at least they set that character up. It was a very well done Joker, and that would have been a way to bridge those two universes together, but they didn't do that. It is the actor from Eternals. I don't know what his name is, but he is here playing the Joker, and it is just, I don't want to say anything bad about his performance because he's literally only in it for 30 seconds, so we don't really get a full extension of it. But from what we've seen in there, it was just something that I did not need in any way, shape, or form. It was so annoying, and it was just like, come on, like, don't set them up, please. I don't need it. Bad number two are the two moments in the movie that was the hardest for me to suspend my disbelief. This movie is a very grounded movie. It's very based in reality. It's very dark. It's very gritty. It's like it's like the movie Seven, but with Batman in it. And that was really awesome. It was a very unique thing. I liked that it was very gritty and it was very realistic. But then there's two moments in the movie that absolutely shatter that illusion. One is when Batman escapes from the police station and he glides away from the top, and he glides down away into safety, which isn't problematic. The part where we get to a problem is as he starts to gain too much speed as he's coming down back onto ground level, he pulls a parachute which gets caught in a suspension bridge that just ricochets him around and tumbles him into buildings and cars, and he ricochets off of all these things as he comes crashing down onto the ground as hard as he can. You would be dead, and you'd be very dead. And that it just ruined my fucking worldview in this movie. It was such a good thing, and then right there was bam, there goes your suspension of disbelief. Like, you wouldn't survive that. You're just a dude in a costume, albeit it's very heavily armored, but I don't care how heavily armored it is, that would still kill you. And then the second moment comes probably 20 minutes later when the Batman and the Penguin get into a car chase, and the Batman whips into the Penguin's car, sending it ricocheting, and it tumbles over itself a million times as it goes crashing until it comes to a stop upside down, and we get a view of the Penguin, and there's not a scratch on him. Fuck off. Like, he's dead. you're dead. At the very least, there's blood all over your body. You're fucking broken bones everywhere. But nope, he's completely fine. They pull him out and they go off and question him. It's two moments in an otherwise perfectly balanced, realistic crime-fighting movie that just completely take me out of the movie, and it hurts me. It hurts me. And our final bad is not necessarily such a bad, but it is a little bit on the long side. The movie clocks in at a beefy 2 hours and 57 minutes, and this is a movie that easily could have shaved at least 20-25 minutes off of its runtime, and that is right in that meaty subplot where Batman starts to learn more about his parents and his lineage, and learning that they might not have been such a paragon of virtue as he thought they were. And I gotta tell you, I completely could have done without that. You could have cut all of that out of the movie and we would have lost absolutely nothing. And you know why that is? Because just as there's always been Batmen, just as there's always been Jokers to fight those Batmen, there have always been Thomas and Martha Waynes to either be paragon of virtues to save Gotham City, or the questionable people that we thought were so good, but were not as virtuous as we thought they were. It's a story that's tired. It's the same way I don't need to see Spider-Man's origins. Like, it's just like, we know the story. We know the two routes you're going to go with it. I don't need it. You can cut it out. We get it. We've seen it. You've been doing Batman movies for as long as I've been alive. The first one came out the year I was born. We get it. I know about Thomas and Martha Wayne. I don't need it in my Batman movies anymore. You can stop it. Stop it. But that's it for the bads. It's only 3 bads. 1 that's actually bad and 2 that are mostly nitpicky. But for the most part, this movie is an absolute stellar inclusion into the Batman franchise. And now we are going to dive into just what is so fucking phenomenal about this movie. Number 1, the acting is phenomenal across the board. There is not a character or an actor that has been put into this movie that is wasting a performance. Everybody is coming in with their A game. John Turturro, Jeffrey Wright, fantastic character actors. You know they're always going to bring their A game. Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman is a stellar performance. Freaking absolute. She might be my favorite Catwoman that we've seen thus far. Her and Michelle Pfeiffer right there, neck and neck. But she puts in a very good performance here. I think the absolute Robert Pattinson, again, phenomenal. I mean, I knew he was going to be good because he's great. And besides, I mean, I've only ever seen the first Twilight movie, so I can't really talk about those ones. But most everything I've seen him in, he has been an absolute phenomenal actor. So I knew he was going to crush this. But the absolute fucking ace in the hole in this movie is Paul Dano as the Riddler. That man is such an underrated actor, and he is firing on all cylinders in this movie. He is absolutely crushing it. He is menacing, terrifying, is just absolutely unhinged. And then when we finally get to peel behind the curtain and see him as an actual person, and see the frail tenderness underneath him and that nervousness and scaredness, it is such an interesting juxtaposition to show that this guy, and it's just such a phenomenal character, the way that Matt Reeves and Paul Dano pulled together to really create such a phenomenal fucking villain in the Riddler. Number 2, they managed to create an atmosphere that made this Batman movie unique from all of the others. And that is what you need to do when you're making Batman movies, is you need to make these movies as unique as possible. And the thing that I love that Matt Reeves did, another thing, I feel like there's so much parallels to Seven in this movie. That must have been, I really hope that was one of his influences, because it feels like it's all over the place in this movie. And in this movie, I love that with the exception of maybe 3 or 4 scenes, it is fucking pouring rain the entire movie. It is such an interesting aesthetic to help separate this Gotham City and this Batman movie from other movies in the past that we've gotten. It just sets this stage of just this seedy, grimy, hard place to live that would make sense why there would be this crime-fighting Batman there. Like, this place is just fucking so desolate and destitute and dreary. It rains all the fucking time, so people are just miserable. This place is just pure chaos. The aesthetic of this movie is fucking phenomenal. Kudos to the cinematographer and Matt Reeves, whoever all worked together to create the aesthetic for this movie. It is simply amazing. Number three, my boy from Lost, baby, Michael Giacchino, ripping another stellar soundtrack. The Batman theme, especially in this movie, is absolutely incredible. It has already been added to my soundtracks playlist on Spotify. It is an incredible piece of music. The Catwoman theme is another one that's really good. There's a lot of great sections of this movie that just has some stellar fucking music work, and I'm not surprised because Michael Giacchino is a fucking king, man. Ever since I first heard him on Lost, he has been just crushing the game, and he has easily become one of my favorite musicians for soundtracks and orchestras for movie soundtracks. So it's baller work from him. Number four is another thing that helps make this Batman movie super unique, and that is the fact that our Batman is just so young and angry in his game that we barely ever see him as Bruce Wayne. I fucking love that. That in a movie that is almost 3 hours, there's maybe 2 scenes where he's actually being Bruce Wayne. This man is just so encompassed and so just sucked into being Batman that it's almost like he's losing himself to Batman. Like with each moment that passes, like less and less of Bruce Wayne is him. It's just getting sucked out of him as he's just morphing into the Batman. It's so freaking great to watch and see, just like he's just this vengeful emo Batman that is just losing himself with each and every day that passes. It's phenomenal work right there. I love it. It's so great, and it's such a unique twist on Batman that we could finally see this Batman who's struggling to understand that he needs to be the two halves of himself. He needs both of those together. It's a neat little thing to make it unique. Number five is the emphasis on detective Batman over bombastic action set pieces. It would have been very easy for this movie to just rip in, big over the top, blown out stunts and set pieces, but he never does it. He stays as restrained as possible. There's really only two big set pieces in this entire movie, and it's the chase scene with the Penguin in the halfway mark, and then that finale. And even the finale is not big and audacious. It's very restrained and it's low scale, and I fucking love that. I love that we have Detective Batman, and this movie is just a slow burn. Again, like Seven, he's just this slow burn detective trying to piece together this horrific villain that is plaguing Gotham City and leaving just a string of bodies in his wake. It is so reminiscent to Seven, which is very much like when you had Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman racing against time and finding all these bodies and trying to find the guy who is terrorizing their city, leaving in their path a wake of bodies. It is a fucking incredible idea to make a Batman movie that's just Seven, and I fucking love it. I don't know if that was his intention or that was his move, but this is pretty much just the Batman in Seven, and I've said it so many times before, and I'm just gonna keep reiterating it because it's so fucking great. It's a genius fucking idea, and it works to incredible effect here when we get to see Detective Batman in action. And our final up is the journey that the Batman goes on in this movie. It is a very neat little arc that I didn't really see coming in this movie until it got towards the end. And you finally had one of the Riddler's villains say vengeance back to Batman when he's asked, who is he? It is a very beautiful, subtle trick done by Matt Reeves to bring the Batman on this journey. In the beginning of the movie, he is this vengeful crime fucking stopper. He is this dude that lives in the shadows, that wants people to fear. He wants Gotham's villains and most people in this city to fear and think that he's always lurking in the shadows to take down. So everyone in the city is just on fucking tiptoes. This man is just pure fury and anger and vengeance, and he is so blinded in that he never sees that what that is doing to his city, that it's corrupting it, that what he's trying to do is actually, in the execution of what he's doing, is doing the complete inverse of what he's trying to achieve. His execution and his intentions are good, but where as he continues over it, it's just getting muddied and it's getting corrupted by his fucking anger and his jealousy and his fear, and it's just tainting the pools of Gotham City. So as he finally gets into that arc in the end, when he takes the Riddler down, and even the Riddler says to him, he's like, you and me, we're gonna do this together, man. He's like, we're the same person. Like, you're there to help us. You're one of us. He realizes what he's done, and he realizes how he's tainted it. And when he hears that fucking Riddler villain goon say back to him, I'm vengeance, he understands just what he's done wrong here in this element. And now he must change it. Now he must fix it. And now he must realize that what he has to be is he's got to be that paragon of hope. He still has a bit way to go, and he's still got his anger, and he's still got his issues, but he has to learn how to channel that, and he has to learn how to output that into hope for these people and give these people an idea that there is a better Gotham coming, and he has to raise higher than he thought he could be as the Batman. It's a great little arc. It is fucking, it's choice. It's just a little bit choice right there. It is great fucking work right there. Stellar work from Matt Reeves. And those are my thoughts on The Batman. It was a thrilling movie, and it was so great to finally get such a good movie back in theaters after suffering through January and February, where there was such a dearth of nothingness to sift through. Now we've got another 3 or 4 weeks to go before we actually get another movie in theaters. The Batman's gonna reign hell for the next couple of weeks, but much deservedly. I hope that movie makes as much money as it can, because I want another one of those. Obviously, they're gonna get their trilogy. DC would be fools not to make another one of these, and with Matt Reeves at the helm, I know that they are in good hands, because Matt Reeves is one hell of a writer-director, and the sky is the limit on what they can do with this franchise. I rate my movies out of 5. The Batman, for me, scores at a very beautiful 4 stars, baby. So, until the next review, until the next movie, you know what to do. You get out there and you go see some movies. You have been you, I have been me. These are the movies that we love to watch. And until next time,